Imagine waking up tomorrow and discovering that every book in your house is illegal. Not because it contains violence, not because it spreads lies, but because it teaches you how to think. If the government finds even one book, they won't just confiscate it, they'll burn it, along with every other book they can find. It sounds like science fiction, but over 70 years ago, one man imagined exactly this future. What's truly terrifying is how much of his warning feels real today. That book was Fahrenheit 451, and this isn't just a novel. It's one of the most chilling warnings ever written about the future of humanity. This is not just a classic science fiction novel. This is a warning. A warning about screens, distraction, short attention spans, emotional control, and a society that slowly forgets how to think. Ray Bradbury wrote this book in the middle of the 20th century, long before smartphones, earbuds, streaming platforms, and endless scrolling. But somehow, he described all of them with frightening accuracy. That is why this book still feels dangerous. The story behind the book is almost as powerful as the book itself. In 1953, Ray Bradbury did not have luxury, comfort, or a fancy writing studio. He wrote this novel in the basement of a university library. He used a rented typewriter that charged him money every few minutes. Every time the machine stopped, he had to put in another coin and keep going. There was pressure, urgency, and no room to waste time. Out of that pressure came one of the most important warnings in modern literature. He called it Fahrenheit 451, the temperature at which book paper catches fire and burns. Even the title feels like a threat. But here is the irony. The book that warned the world about censorship became one of the books most challenged, censored, edited, and banned in schools and libraries. That alone proves Bradbury's point. The system does not always destroy dangerous ideas with violence. Sometimes it simply hides them, softens them, or makes them disappear quietly. At the center of the story is a man named Guy Montag. He is a fireman, but not the kind you expect. In this future, houses are built to resist fire, so firemen have found a new purpose. Their job is to search for books, destroy them, and punish the people who keep them. Montag is not a rebel at the beginning. He is proud of his work. He enjoys the smell of kerosene. He believes he is serving peace, order, and happiness. In the opening line of the novel, Bradbury tells us something shocking. It was a pleasure to burn. That line tells you everything about this world. Violence has become normal. Destruction has become entertainment. But then Montag meets someone unusual. Her name is Clarice. She is young, curious, calm, and completely different from the people around her. She does not live through giant screens. She does not speak in empty cliches. She notices the world. She watches the rain. She walks slowly. She asks strange questions. And then she asks Montag one question that quietly destroys his whole identity. Are you happy? It sounds simple, almost innocent. But in a dead society, a real question is more dangerous than a weapon. That single moment changes everything. Montag begins to look at his world with new eyes. He realizes the people around him are not truly living. They are sedated by speed, noise, and entertainment. They drive so fast that they never have to notice anything. They watch so much content that they never have to face their own emptiness. They fill every silence because silence might force them to think. Bradbury is showing us a society that is not controlled only by fear, it is controlled by comfort. Then we see Montag's wife, Mildred. She is one of the most disturbing parts of the book because she feels so familiar. She spends her life surrounded by giant wall-sized screens called the parlor walls. These screens play interactive shows all day and all night. She calls the fictional characters on the screen her family. When she is not watching them, she puts tiny audio devices into her ears and disappears into private sound. Bradbury called them seashell radios. Think about that for a second. He imagined wall screens and wireless earbuds decades before modern technology made them normal. He was not just writing fiction. He was predicting isolation. Mildred is not evil. That is what makes her tragic. She is empty. She is numb. She has lost the ability to feel deeply, reflect honestly, or connect meaningfully. At one point, she takes too many sleeping pills and almost dies. But even this is treated as routine. Medical workers arrive with machines, clean out her body, and leave without emotion. They do this so often that it has become an ordinary job. Bradbury is saying something brutal here. In a society obsessed with comfort, even despair becomes mechanical. Montag's awakening becomes stronger when he witnesses one of the most unforgettable scenes in the novel. A woman is caught hiding books in her home. The firemen arrive to burn everything. But instead of leaving, she chooses to stay with her books and die in the fire. That moment shakes Montag to his core. Why would someone choose death over giving up books? What could possibly be inside them that makes them worth dying for? That question becomes the engine of the story. So Montag does something small, but life-changing. He steals a book, then another and another. At first, he does not even fully understand why. He is pulled by instinct, by curiosity, by the feeling that something real is hidden inside those pages. This is important. Bradbury shows that rebellion does not always begin with courage. Sometimes it begins with confusion. Sometimes it begins with a person quietly asking, "What if everything I have been told is false?" As Montag reads, he slowly discovers what books actually do. They do not give simple answers. They do something more dangerous. They slow you down. They show contradiction. They make room for discomfort. They allow people from different times to speak into your mind. They force you to compare ideas, challenge beliefs, and sit with difficult truths. In other words, books create inner freedom, and that is exactly why authoritarian systems hate them. This is where Fahrenheit 451 becomes more than a story about burning paper. It becomes a story about the destruction of deep thinking. Bradbury is not saying books are magical objects. He is saying they represent something modern. Society is always in danger of losing. Attention, patience, reflection, memory, complexity. The ability to sit alone with an idea and let it change you. Montag eventually meets a former English professor named Faber. Faber helps explain why books matter. He says the value of books is not just in the object itself. It is in what books contain. Texture of life. Contradiction. Truth without simplification. He also says that reading alone is not enough. People need time to think about what they read, and freedom to act on what they learn. This is one of the deepest ideas in the whole novel. Real reading is not passive. It changes how you see and live in the world. Then we come to the most chilling character in the book, Captain Beatty, Montag's boss. Beatty is not a simple villain. He is intelligent, well-read, sharp, and manipulative. He understands books better than the people who burn them. That is what makes him terrifying. He uses knowledge not to free others, but to trap them. He knows literature. He quotes it. But he serves the system anyway. Beatty represents a dangerous truth. Intelligence alone does not guarantee wisdom. A person can understand great ideas and still use that understanding to defend control. Beatty also reveals the most important idea in the entire novel. According to him, censorship did not begin with the government forcing books out of people's hands. It began because people stopped wanting difficult things. As life became faster, media became shorter. Everything had to be simpler, quicker, easier, more entertaining. Books were shortened, then compressed, then reduced, then ignored. At the same time, people became more sensitive, more reactive, and less willing to face offense or disagreement. Nobody wanted discomfort. Nobody wanted challenge. And little by little, society chose comfort over thought. That is the genius of Bradbury's warning. The real enemy is not only the state. The real enemy is voluntary mental surrender. A culture that gets addicted to distraction becomes easy to control. A population that no longer reads deeply does not need to have books violently taken away. It will abandon them on its own. That is what makes this novel feel so modern. Bradbury was not just afraid of censorship from above. He was afraid of emptiness from within. Look at the world now. Short videos replace long attention. Headlines replace full arguments. People react before they understand. Algorithms learn what keeps us angry, distracted, entertained, and emotionally dependent. Many people do not read to learn. They skim to confirm. They scroll to avoid silence. They consume so much information that they lose the ability to absorb any of it. Bradbury saw this coming. Not the exact devices, but the psychology behind them. And this is where the novel becomes terrifyingly personal. Fahrenheit 451 asks a question that is uncomfortable to answer. If books disappeared tomorrow, how many people would truly fight to keep them? How many people still have the attention span, emotional stamina, and desire for complexity that real reading demands? The novel is not only about a tyrannical system, it is about us. About whether we are helping build that system through our habits every single day. Another powerful symbol in the book is the Mechanical Hound. It is a machine built to hunt, track, and kill those who do not obey. On the surface, it is a piece of dystopian technology, but symbolically, it feels like automated surveillance, algorithmic punishment, and systems that detect deviation. It is cold, efficient, and inhuman. Bradbury seems to be saying that once a society gives up thought, it also gives up the ability to resist systems that watch, predict, and punish behavior. The final part of the novel expands its message even more. Montag runs away from the city and meets a group of people who have each memorized entire books. They are trying to preserve literature, not by hiding physical copies, but by becoming living libraries. This is one of the most beautiful ideas in the story. When institutions fail, memory becomes resistance. When culture burns, human beings can still carry meaning inside themselves. Then comes destruction. War reaches the city. The world Montag once believed in collapses in a single violent moment. And here Bradbury introduces the symbol of the phoenix, the mythical bird that burns and rises again from its own ashes. Human beings make the same mistakes over and over, but they also carry the possibility of rebuilding. That is why the novel is dark, but not hopeless. It warns us, but it also leaves a door open. We can still choose to remember. We can still choose to read. We can still choose to think. So what did Bradbury really predict? Not just censorship, not just screen addiction, not just earbuds and giant television walls. He predicted a world where people would trade depth for speed, reflection for stimulation, and truth for emotional comfort. He predicted a culture where distraction would do the work that fire once did. In his world, books burn in flames. In ours, they can disappear under noise. That is also why this book keeps getting challenged. It does not flatter the reader. It does not simply say, "Look how evil governments are." It says something much more unsettling. It says that free societies can destroy themselves without chains, without prisons, and without open terror. All they need is endless entertainment, shrinking attention, and a population that slowly forgets how to ask real questions. And maybe that is why Clarice matters so much. She does not fight with weapons. She notices things. She feels things. She asks questions. In a dead culture, attention is rebellion. Curiosity is rebellion. Slowness is rebellion. Genuine conversation is rebellion. Bradbury is reminding us that the defense of reading begins long before a book is banned. It begins when a person chooses not to live on autopilot. That is why Fahrenheit 451 is still one of the most important books ever written. It is not old. It is not outdated. It is becoming more relevant every year. It forces us to confront a difficult truth. The death of reading does not begin when books are burned. It begins when people no longer want the kind of life that books make possible. So maybe the real question is not whether Bradbury predicted the future. Maybe the real question is whether we are still in time to change it. Have you read Fahrenheit 451? And do you think our world is moving closer to Bradbury's warning? If you enjoyed this deep analysis, subscribe to the channel and stay with us for more powerful stories from the world of books, ideas, and forgotten warnings. See you in the next one.